Welcome to Buffzone. My name is Kyle Ringo. This is Neill Woelk. We cover the University of Colorado football team for the Daily Camera newspaper. Neill, you have a prediction you'd like to share with people this week.
Kyle, I'm going to absolutely, positively guarantee that the Buffs will not lose this week.
Wow, that's really going out on a limb since the Buffs don't even play this week, Neill.
Oh, sure. Go ahead and spoil it all, okay? I had people all excited there for just a minute, with that big guarantee. But, hey, it's the off week. They have a little chance to rest up, work on some things that they obviously need to work on. So I actually think this is a very important week for Colorado.
Well, why do you think that?
Well, I think they've got. I think this is a chance for them to work on a lot of the things that obviously have not worked well the first 3 games of the season. I think they, took some strides in a win over Wyoming. It was a nice win for the defense, a shutout, something they hadn't had in a while. But obviously there are a lot of little things they still need to correct, on offense and on defense. So I think this is a very important week for them to rest up a little bit. They've got some confidence and now, work on those things that will give them a chance to go to West Virginia and be competitive and maybe win a game.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about just where this program stands right now. Obviously, you know that, after a couple of losses to start the season, things were getting pretty negative around the program. A lot of talk about Dan Hawkins' job security. They beat Wyoming. They beat them in impressive fashion, 24-0 at Folsom Field. Wyoming obviously isn't a program that's threatening to win the Mountain West Conference.
Well, they were picked to finish last, yeah.
Right. So I guess my question to you is what does that victory really mean for this program, and where do things stand?
Well, I think a win is a win, number one. I mean, if they'd have beaten Toledo, then you'd say, what does that victory mean? Well, it doesn't mean much except if they beat Toledo, and I think it's the same thing with Wyoming. I mean, it's one win that you were counting on at the beginning of the season when you looked at this schedule and you said, okay, these are games they should win. That was a game they should win. I think it means a little more to the defense, just in the sense that they seem to have simplified things and they didn't give up the big play, and I think there's a little confidence factor in there, and I don't care what any of the players or the coaches say, there has to be a little bit of a crisis of confidence when you've given up 600 and something yards on just 16 plays, and they greatly reduced that number last week. So I think strictly from a confidence standpoint that the things they're working on are maybe working. I think that helps to start with.
I think what the Wyoming victory did is, at the very least, it kind of dulled or postponed or delayed any more talk about, the coaching situation and Dan Hawkins' future and any pressure that might or might not be there. It gave them some breathing room, so to speak. But I do think that issue still remains and will continue to remain.
It's not going to go away.
And, you're looking at a team here that's facing consecutive road games now at West Virginia and at Texas, 2 very difficult places to get a win. And then you're coming back home against Kansas, a team that's favored to win the North Division by most people's standards. So there's a very real possibility in my mind that all that negativity that we began the season with could come back if the Buffs take a step back and don't play well in those games.
Oh yeah, I mean you're looking at the potential of 1-5 is what you're saying after these next 3 games, and that will only increase the heat. And Dan Hawkins said he didn't feel it. Mike Bones says there's no pressure, there's no heat. All those things, they're all saying the right thing. But the bottom line is if you start out the season like they've started out this year in a coach's 4th year, certainly there's going to be some heat from the outside. Now, whether that's coming from the inside, we don't know. Whether there actually is some pressure within Dal Ward. But if they don't, continue to turn things around a little bit, play a little bit better, be competitive, go to West Virginia, maybe sneak away with a win or at least be competitive, go to Texas, don't get just hammered, and then come home and play well against Kansas, then yeah, there's going to be more heat, there's going to be more pressure on a coach in his 4th year. That's, and that's understandable when you look at it from the standpoint of the fans.
You and I started this season thinking that this team was capable of winning 8 games and going to a pretty decent bowl game. I'm not so sure that after the first 3 games I believe that anymore, but I still do believe that looking at the schedule and looking at the way this team kind of bounced back against Wyoming, given I realize it's a poor Wyoming offense, but still, there's something to be said for the way the Buffs came back and played in the face of all that adversity. I still think this team is capable of going to a bowl game. I think the most likely scenario of that happening is maybe finishing 6-6 and getting one of those bottom tier bowls. But I think things could turn out okay still for this program and for this coaching staff if they can manage a rally to 6-6.
I think that's a fair statement right there, and I think what you're trying to say is there's still a chance for a respectable season. And no, 6-6 is not what people were looking at. It's not what people were counting on. But I think they still can carve out a semblance of respectability before this season is over. But they have to start. They have to continue to play better. They have to win some games. And somewhere along the line, you'd like to see them beat somebody they're not supposed to. You'd like to see them beat a Kansas or a Missouri or a Nebraska or an Okie State. Somebody that at the beginning of the year you said, okay, that's not one of those games I think they're going to win. And somewhere, if they can carve that out, then they can get back to where you would say, okay, it was a relatively respectable season, especially giving this 0-2 start. And it would speak something toward the coaching staff and especially toward a lot of young players. And that's one thing people don't want to hear. But the fact of the matter is, there's still a lot of young kids on this team who I think feel pressure, probably more so than a veteran bunch would.
There's a formula in my mind for getting to 6 wins and getting to a bowl game, and that is there's 4 home games left on the schedule. You got to win all 4 of those games and steal a game on the road. Maybe the most likely game to steal on the road is Iowa State. But the Cyclones seem to be playing well. They just broke their road losing streak, and they're running the ball well. So who knows what they'll be playing like come November. But that's sort of my formula. I think if they could do that, get to 6 wins, get to a bowl game, maybe some of the pressure will come off of this program and these coaches.
Well, I don't think the pressure is going to go away for a while. I think even if they win 6 games, there's still going to be a certain segment that's going to say, hey, this guy's in his 4th year. All they did was win 6 games. That's not enough improvement. But I think what it will do will be at least enough for the athletic director and the people making those decisions to say, okay, look, they did gain a measure of respectability. It's time to give him his 5th year. That being said, we're just at the 3rd game of the season. I think it's a little bit premature to be making a lot of those judgments, but I think you're right. A 6-win season would be a measure of respectability.
All right. We'll come back early next week, and we'll be talking about the West Virginia Mountaineers, and we'll see if we can keep the streak rolling. It would be 3 weeks in a row that Neill actually said I was right. That's how you're going to end?